Good morning, everyone. It's Yvonne here to do your What's Cracking reading. Firstly, thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. Thank you for all your beautiful comments and your ongoing loyalty. I do appreciate you. I have a couple of things. Firstly, I shared a video I did with the lovely Susie from Spiritual Freedom Podcast yesterday. We talked about manifestation, which was a lovely conversation because it's really good to hear other people's views, because although they align, we see it a little bit differently. So if you're interested in watching that, I have posted it below actually I might have posted it on the What's Cracking channel, which is where I'm going to post this, but I might see if I can post it on the other channel as well. But enjoyed doing that immensely, and please go and have a look at her channel because she's such a delightful person, and I've really enjoyed doing that with her. I've known her for quite a long time, so it was really pleasant to sort of just chit chat about stuff. All right, I'm going to do your reading today from the Black and Gold Tarot, which is a normal tarot deck, but it's done in the black and gold embossing. I feel like there's something else I wanted to say too. I always get along, I remember along the way. Okay, so we have the Five of Cups coming through. I feel like the Five of Cups is always sort of this energy of not really looking at things in a positive way, like looking at things in a very negative light. You know, maybe looking back to the past and not really understanding the future. But for me, it always makes me feel like you're missing out on something because you're so occupied with what's gone that you're forgetting what's to come. And we know when you're doing the spiritual work, one of the most important things that you need to work on is letting go of the past and being able to focus on the here and now. Not so much desiring a future, not so much living with what's already gone, but actually learning to live in the moment. And I often talk about Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. For me, that was a life changer because for the first time in my life, and it's going back probably 20 odd years ago, but for the first time in my life, I learned what it was like to live in the moment. And although it was difficult for me to start with, because you keep wanting to sort of trip backwards and forwards, the learning of that was a big turning point for me, especially in terms of releasing the past, releasing the grief of the past and some of the things that I probably felt made me at that time who I was rather than who I was meant to be. I guess that's the best way to put it. So when I look at this card, I see a person who's all in black, which sort of makes me feel like this heavy, dark energy. And this person is focused on the spilt cups rather than the two that stand behind them. And it's that simple. It's that simple as just dropping your cloak and turning round. But what we do is we get so intent on the past, it can't lead anywhere. It can't go anywhere. It's done and dusted. But we get very focused on that and we find it hard to let go. If you're like that, then maybe you need to look at, you know, how to focus more on where you are and what you have in the moment. It is a little hard to start with. After a while it becomes quite a I don't want to say a normal thing, but a comfortable thing for you once you know how to do it. But because this feels like past energy, it might be that you have been working on that because we have the Queen of Cups coming through. Now, the Queen of Cups for me is a person who's very intuitive. She's very much in love with herself. She knows who she is. She's comfortable. She doesn't really worry about what things are saying. We're talking about somebody who could be quite psychic, but she is very comfortable in her own skin. But I feel like with this, she's probably worked to get to where she is. I don't feel this is a natural place for her to be. I feel like she's had to work at it. And we do have the card of rebirth behind that. So when the Judgment card comes through, that's the point where you end the major arcana. You've got one card to go after this, and then that cycle is completely finished. But what the Judgment card calls speaks to is that call to judgment. It's that looking back at that last cycle and saying, yes, I did that extremely well, or yes, I did that extremely well, but maybe I could have done a couple of things even better than I did. But this is about rebirth. It's about coming to a new energy and leaving that past cycle behind to start something new. Okay, so what we're talking about now is your world being opened up to lots of opportunities, and that can be a bit overwhelming sometimes. I always say this card is sort of, for me, the confusion, delusion, whatever, illusion, and can sort of represent any of those things. But in this particular circumstance, I'm feeling there's this overwhelming feeling of, where do I go next? Like, I've done all this work on myself. I feel like I've reached a really good point in my life, and I'm ready to sort of embark on the next stage and let go of what I've sort of worked through. But where do I go next? Now, I read for a beautiful woman yesterday who said to me, I don't know what to do with my life. I don't know the direction I need to go in. And I do a lot of readings on, life paths. The thing is, if you're trying too hard to work out where you're going, it's just as difficult as trying to live from your past. You have to just be prepared to sort of work your way through, like, understand what you like to do, for example, because most times your life path is built around what makes you feel good about yourself. So that is sort of that energy of, yes, it's confusing now. Maybe you don't know where you're going. Maybe that part of you that you've left behind, that old self that you've shed, may have been a person who'd learned how to do, I don't know, mathematics, but now you've done the work, you might want to go back to that very thing that you loved doing in the first place, which might have been working with animals. So it's not a matter of pushing yourself to find what you need to do to, make yourself happy going several years forward, because that's not going to really work. What you need to do is you need to work out what makes you happy now and work around that. So I feel like this is what you're doing here. The Six of Pentacles is about equal distribution of resources. Oh my goodness. And I feel like here, this is where you're looking at, what can I put out into the universe that I know is going to benefit others, so I can do the work I'm meaning to do. So, for example, especially with that Queen of Cups coming up, maybe you want to move into esoteric work. Maybe you want to be a reader. Maybe you want to have a YouTube channel. Maybe you want to, work with people who come from disadvantaged backgrounds, like domestic violence. Maybe there's something within you that's always called to you, but you've led a different life or gone down a different pathway. And for me, this is that energy of, I want to give back. I want to be able to, spread the love that I have to give to people through the work I do. And I feel this is what you're doing here. So the past cards behind that. So again, I'm coming back to some idea of something you did in the past, something you really loved and enjoyed. Maybe somebody steered you away from that. Maybe you steered yourself away from it because there wasn't enough money in it. Maybe life has changed for you now. So I'm feeling like here, there's a little bit of work to be done, but that's okay. So when we talk about the shadow side here, very often we stick stuff away in there because we don't feel comfortable showing that side of ourselves to the world. So, for example, as a child, you wanted to be an elephant trainer. I always go to astronaut, but let's say elephant trainer. And that's all you wanted to do, is train elephants. Like, it was in your heart, in your soul, from the time you were small, it was all you wanted to do. But is there a lot of call for an elephant trainer? So maybe you're thinking, well, I couldn't do that in my work because becoming an elephant trainer, maybe I wouldn't get the money I need to live or support a family. So what do I do instead? So what happens then is we tend to go for something that's going to streamline us into society. And then what we do is we leave our passion behind, and we decide then to become a mathematician rather than an elephant trainer, an accountant, a radio announcer, whatever it is, you go down that path. And then after a while, you realize that it's not as satisfying as what you thought it would be. So all of a sudden, the idea of making change or moving into a new time becomes more attractive. So I feel like here, this is what this is all about. To me, it makes me feel like you want to let go of something and be able to move into, I think I must have put that card away somewhere, to move into something. Oh, there it is. Look at that. It was sitting in my lap. And let go of that. Let go of that sadness. Let go of that, that energy of what you've been doing, where you've been, this part of you that really isn't who you are. You're going to let go of it, and you're going to break into a new energy, a brand new you. And I feel like for many of you, this is through the work you do or through the way you want your life to go, because something here is not cutting it for you anymore. All right, let's see where we're going. Now, this card comes out a lot, and it's funny because I always think there's a card a week that shows its face a lot more than other cards. And really, I could do a reading on one card every week and pick a card that's constantly coming out. And this is the one I see at the moment. Now, because this card has many meanings for me, it's not just a flat out one meaning. It really is about standing your ground, standing up for what you want. It's about fighting for who you are. It's fighting for what you want. It can be sometimes a little defensive. Sometimes you may be fighting so hard you forget what you're fighting for. But whatever this is, I see you fighting for change. Beautiful time too, new year coming through. So we have the Knight of Swords coming through there with the Temperance card, and we have the Three of Cups. I see the Knight of Swords racing towards the Seven of Wands. So I know that you desire change very, very greatly. This is this energy of wanting to make changes quickly. And I say to people, little steps. Don't try to do everything all at once, because often then we become overwhelmed, and then we find it really difficult to find our way through that confusion. So this is you wanting that change. This is you seeing the truth of that change and wanting to go towards it. I do feel here that the universe is saying to you that this is the time to temper that energy. What you want to do with that energy is entirely up to you. Where you want to go with that energy is something that you can perhaps digest, sit on, work out where you're going to go. But we're tempering the energy when we see this card. Maybe the time just isn't quite right. Maybe you're going to have to do more study. Maybe you're going to have to study full stop, and you've never done that before. Some of us have sort of never sort of dipped our fingers or dipped our toes into something. So maybe this time around you're needing to do something. Maybe you're having a complete change. Like you're going from, being the mathematician to the elephant trainer. Whatever it is here, I do see success and celebration. But what I see more here is the support from family and friends. So you obviously got people around you who want to see you succeed as well. And I think that's really important. All right, so we have the Five of Wands. Where to go to now? I see a little bit of looking around. I feel like I had those same cards yesterday, the Hierophants here. I definitely feel this is study. I feel this is more than likely going to TAFE, university, college, whatever it is. Maybe you never finished school. Some of us didn't finish school, and then we finished our education much later. But this to me makes me feel like you're perhaps looking at or even writing to colleges, applying, that type of thing. And I feel that there is confusion here. There is communication coming through. And look, you're coming up as the Nine of Pentacles energy and then the Empress. So whatever it is that you're starting out with here, although it seems like a bit of a pipe dream, although it seems like you're aiming 14:44 on the clock, you're aiming for something more, you're aiming for something bigger, you want something more. It's really funny. I'll tell you when I was young, it was never about being, you know, making lots of money or being famous or being really successful. For me, my father in particular, my stepfather, was very much about, you know, women stayed at home, raised a family, they shouldn't have a career. So I grew with that. For my mother, you know, my mother, you know, did a lot of sort of part-time work in stores and retail and things like that. So I didn't really have anyone around me who'd been successful or made a lot of money. But the way it was talked about at home, it was sort of like this, you needed just to make ends meet. If you could make ends meet, that was all you were there for. And I think about some of those things that you're told that end up giving you those very limiting beliefs on what you can do and where you can go. Did I have ambitions then? Funnily enough, I was always very much a person that wanted to give. So I remember wanting to be like a policewoman or a nurse. Like those were the sort of things that came to light for me at that time. I never thought about doing anything beyond that. I guess, you know, if that was my dream then, it could have been something I'd gone back to now. But I feel like looking back at my past, it wasn't really where I was at. But that's the sort of thing I'm talking about. You know, I hear people say, I love taking photographs. I'm incredibly good at photography, but I couldn't see that I could make a career out of it. But yet, there are people who become very famous and very well known and very successful through doing that. The one thing I was always taught was that it wasn't good to be those people. It wasn't good to be successful or make a lot of money because that wasn't what we were on the planet for. So you were always sort of cut down. It was always that tall poppy syndrome. You know, you couldn't be those things. You were never encouraged to be more than what you were. I loved acting. I loved drama. I loved singing. I loved dancing. But I never really thought that any of those things could be nurtured into something more. So whatever this is for you, I feel like you're going back and having a look at what you wanted to do many years ago, and maybe you're finding some way now to really find your way back there. I feel that you're living in a life where you perhaps have, and I don't want to say regrets because I feel like everything brings us around to the present moment. What I feel like here is that you're looking back thinking you could have done more, you could have been more. And I feel that you've done a lot of work here. There seems to have been a rebirth. But I feel like now the options are overwhelming for you. I feel that you want to give back. It's something perhaps you've always wanted to do. And it does look like there's a little bit more work to do. But I also feel with the Wheel of Fortune here that things are going to fall into place the way they should. I can't click my fingers very well. They just don't click like they should. So I feel like here that the universe is giving you an opportunity to sort of go back to the drawing board. And I don't want to hear anybody say I'm too old for that. For goodness sakes, I see people in their 90s going and jumping out of planes because they always wanted a skydive. I see people in their 80s and 90s going back to college and getting a degree because they felt that they couldn't do that when they were younger. There is no such thing as being too old. No such thing. Not an excuse. You can't use that excuse anymore. All right, let's have a look and see what the Fairies Oracle has to give us in terms of the Oracle. Support from the universe. Let's see what you have to say. All right, we're pulling one at random. And it is the Singer of Connection. Card number 6. The Singer of Connection, spiritual connection, karma, balance, and empathy. Through the power of this singer, all connections are made, held, and released as appropriate. In a reading, the singer indicates the connection of things, especially reconnecting those who've been sundered. It is unifying and reunifying. It tells us that we need to be aware of the connections between different aspects of the issue under discussion, as well as the connection between the people linked by it. We also may need to build more connections, a network of mutual support. The presence of the Singer of Connection in a reading indicates support and strength flowing through the connections between those involved. So I feel like here, especially because you've got the Strength card, maybe this is you looking through connections to what you want to do. That's, to me, building a network, finding out where you need to go, finding out what connects the dots. Beautiful energy coming through. I'll leave you with that. Thanks, everyone.